Okay, so like everyone and their grandma knows what Scooby-Doo is, right? That Hanna-Barbera cartoon from the 70s where a bunch of stoners and their dog solved poorly thought out investment schemes that somehow got like 20 fucking thousand direct-to-video movies? Well, Scoob is the latest incarnation of this franchise, and suffice to say, the reception of this movie has been slightly unfavorable. Just a little. So I'ma just clarify right off the bat that I haven't actually seen the Scoob movie. I mean, based on what I heard off the grapevine, I think it's safe to assume that it's a typical summer kids flick with a bare-bones plot, overflowing with pop culture references that no one's going to remember in 2 to 5 weeks, and ultimately doesn't provide much substance as entertainment. Now before you guys get all huffy about me giving unfounded opinions, keep in mind that this isn't so much a movie review as it is just me throwing my 2 cents as to why this film seems to have pissed off quite a few people. Not because it's a reboot of a tired old property that isn't really doing anything new to the concept. That's expected in this day and age. No, the shitstorm was more on the production side of this thing. So despite being around for well over 5 decades, the show doesn't actually go through a whole lot of turnover with the voice actors. Those of you that are old-ass millennials like me probably grew up with Frank Welker as Fred and Scooby, Gray Delisle-Griffin as Daphne, Matthew Lillard as Shaggy, and either Mindy Cohn or Kate Micucci as Velma. These guys have pretty much embodied these characters since the turn of the century. Shout out to Frank Welker who, by God, has been the OG voice of Fred since freaking 1969, man, holy shit. But basically, these characters really mean a lot to them. Anyway, when the Scoob movie was first announced, I was like, fucking A, they're finally doing a theatrical film of Scooby-Doo in its full animated glory. And not just that, these professional voice actors who have been connected to these characters for so long are going to get top billing and have their names up on the silver screen as they so rightly deserve. If only. So yeah, the meddling Hollywood execs were all like, nah, you losers aren't marketable. We're just gonna sever any emotional ties you have to the Scooby Gang and replace you all with quasi-A-list celebrities with little to no understanding of the characters. Oh yeah, we're not even gonna tell you guys personally that you've been excluded because... fuck you. Except you, Frank, you stay. You mean I get to play Fred and Scooby? Nah, just the dog. You're far too inexperienced to play Fred despite voicing him single-handedly for half a century, so we're giving the role to the High School Musical guy. Be grateful. I really wish I was being hyperbolic about this whole thing, but that is legit how it all went down. The producers just straight up gave them all a big fat middle finger, and needless to say, the VAs did not take this too well. I mean, they're all professionals, so it's not like they were throwing a conniption like a bunch of entitled fanboys, but if the passive-aggressive tweets are anything to go by, I can reasonably assume that they were pretty damn pissed on the inside. And honestly, I can't blame them. All joking aside, the common consensus is that Hollywood did a pretty shitty thing to these guys, and I'm inclined to agree. Like, I'm genuinely disheartened by all this, not just from the perspective of a fan who grew up with Scooby-Doo, but because in retrospect, this really didn't surprise me. Like, at all. This has been a trend since like the 90s that's really been bugging me, you know? When you do animation for television or direct-to-home release, the production and content of the work isn't as regulated because you more or less can control who's consuming the work, and you don't necessarily have to worry too much about direct revenue from viewers. But once you start talking about theatrical animation, producers are all like, oh shit, our audience is a whole lot broader because we're targeting international markets that are full of parents who subscribe to the bullshit mentality that animation is for kids. We should totally appease them. Like, I get it, you gotta get those profits up some way, and casting is a contributing factor as much as we'd hate to admit it. But there are better ways to make that work in your favor that doesn't involve disenfranchising what makes the IP so special to begin with. Like, if you ask me, cartoons that got theatrical films like My Little Pony and even Teen Titans Go did it best. They kept the VAs from the original series cause that's what the kiddos at home have already built a rapport on. Then they casted celebrities in the supporting characters while making sure that their performance fit the role rather than vice versa. And the end result was that they were able to encourage new fans to the franchise without alienating the ones that have already existed. Boom! Universal appeal! Yet somehow, this option was completely overlooked for Scoob. And really, I think it speaks volumes to the more fundamental problem with this movie. Like, I see the trailers and the TV spots with the jarring voice performances and the Netflix jokes, and I'm thinking, this isn't a Scooby-Doo movie. This is a kids movie with Scooby-Doo characters. Yeah, I know it's labeled as a quote-unquote family film, but let's not fucking kid ourselves. I mean, at least with the MLP movie, they knew the lore and history of the show and were able to capitalize it to its fullest effect. But with Scoob, it's almost like the distributors have so little confidence with the premise of Scooby-Doo that they have to bank on star power, outdated pop culture references, and all these other superfluous details because they don't think people can enjoy a Scooby-Doo movie otherwise. Like, come on, Warner Brothers. Scooby-Doo is your pride and joy. Nobody knows these characters and the franchise's legacy better than you do. Yeah, okay, the premise of Scooby-Doo is admittedly pretty campy, but you've always been fun and sincere about that before. And I know you guys genuinely care about animation, because I can't think of any other studio that's willing to build a cinematic universe over 50-year-old Hanna-Barbera cartoons that kids these days don't know jack shit about. So if you're willing to go that far already, why stop halfway? But you know what? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the movie's actually not half bad. Like I said, I haven't actually watched the thing. And for those of you that have watched it and liked it, cool beans. But with what I've seen already and the ensuing drama surrounding it, Scoob just feels like it's trying so hard to be relevant and hip that it just comes off as disingenuous to me. I'm not gonna pretend that I'm a die-hard Scooby-Doo fan or anything, cause I'm not. Except Mystery Incorporated, watch that shit, it's awesome. But I do know that others are huge fans, adults included, and all I really want to say to the big dogs who made this movie is to just have a little more faith in Scooby, man. That's all it takes. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you want to see more content, please subscribe to my channel.